This is Dr. Wysong. This series of videos on the big questions of life will show where each one of us is led if we dare to leave behind preconceived ideas and see where reason and evidence lead. Humans defy evolution. If living things were designed, no more glaringly evident signs could be present. All life is a staggering array of really in-your-face mystery and complexity all the way down to their atomic and quantum levels. Humans, in particular, defy evolutionary explanation. By explanation, I mean accounting for the placement of each atom. Just saying this or that feature arises because of its, quote, survival value, or time, or mutations, or need, or natural selection, is really not accounting for anything. Those words merely express a belief, a faith. Without specific detail about mechanisms, such faith is no better than that held by those who embrace man-made religions and mythologies. Cells. If the library of DNA in a human cell were uncoiled and placed end to end, it would reach to the sun and back 400 times. The energy-producing organelles within cells, mitochondria, produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of the body, at a rate of 9 followed by 20 zeros molecules per second, and a lot more than this under heavy exercise. The total surface area of mitochondrial inner membranes in an adult is almost 4 acres. We produce our body weight in ATP every day and could not survive more than 15 seconds if the production were shut down. If all cells from one human were placed side by side, they could encircle the Earth 200 times. There are almost 300 different kinds of cells known in the human body, about 100 trillion total. All human cells contain the same genetic information, yet somehow each one selects just that portion of the genetic information that dictates its specialized activity. A fat cell swells with fat, muscle cells contract, and immune cells destroy invading microbes. This and every bit of cellular capability and complexity needs to be explained with reason and facts if evolution wants to take credit for it. None of it is, just statements of faith. From a survival standpoint, it would have been smarter to stay really simple asexual cells and divide into or bud offspring. While the rest of nature just went about asexual budding and dividing, we humans, supposedly evolved 2 elaborate sexes simultaneously. A woman's egg only contains half her genes, and a man's spermatozoa only contains half his. That way, when the sperm combines with the egg, the resultant zygote, the fertilized egg, has the correct diploid number of genes to grow a full human. No evolutionary mechanism can explain why somatic, that is, body cells, decide to divide into 2 like versions by mitosis and transmit all their genetic material, whereas other cells in the eggs and sperm decide to divide by meiosis, so only half the genetic material ends up in the progeny cells. The cardiovascular system. The heart beats 24 hours a day for a lifetime, almost 3 billion times by the age of 75. The tiny sinoatrial node in the heart contains about 10,000 pacemaker cells. These are the tiny cells that discharge electricity to the heart muscle, causing it to contract in a rhythm, lub-dub, lub-dub. All 10,000 automatically discharge in synchrony. There's never been a feasible step-by-step evolutionary mechanism detailing the existence of each cell in the heart and its pacemaker. There are 100,000 miles of blood vessels in the human body. If the thinnest cross-section possible were sliced at any point along these miles, millions of chemical elements would be revealed in the cells that were sliced through. Each one of these slices must be explained along the entire 100,000 miles, as well as how they are interlinked with the trillions of other slices and the billions of other elements in the body. But they are not only not explained, they are unexplainable. The digestive system. Consider the coordination necessary for the tongue to dodge the teeth while we eat. Not only do we do it, we don't even think about it. Evolutionary buds of tongues would be chewed off, lacerated, macerated, infected, swallowed, and mutilated along the evolutionary path, making eating either too painful or impossible to do. Death would be the outcome for creatures attempting to evolve tongues. But since we are here with tongues, we must not have gotten here by way of evolution. The anatomy and coordination necessary in the back of the throat to shunt food down the right tube is essential to life. If even once food is swallowed down the wrong tube, the trachea instead of the esophagus, death would occur from asphyxiation or from pneumonia from the food rotting in the bronchi and lungs. But we put food down the right tube millions of times over a lifetime without even thinking about it. Evolution argues that such capabilities arose as a result of trial and error. But this isn't feasible, since all the inevitable errors in the evolutionary journey would mean either death or less fitness. The stomach produces and secretes hydrochloric acid strong enough to dissolve a coin. This acid is responsible in large part for breaking down the protein foods, including tripe, which is stomach. As the stomach supposedly evolved, stomachs and bodies would have been self-digested as evolution worked out how the body could contain a chemical that was strong enough to dissolve the very tissues that produced it. How every inch of the 30 feet of human intestine evolved all of its billions of components simultaneously is a mystery never explained. How our predecessors with partially evolved intestinal tracts could have survived the supposed millions of years of transitional and faulty stages is certainly a mystery as well. The auditory system. In response to some frequencies, the eardrum vibrates at only 1/10 the diameter of a hydrogen atom. The membrane in the middle ear then vibrates only 301,000 millionth of an inch in response. After recognition of the slightest sound, the ear returns to its ready state in about 5,000ths of a second. Sound is transmitted through three bones, the malleus, incus, and stapes, into fluid and to cilia that vibrate at 20,000 times per second. This causes atomic ions to move, which in turn stimulates nerve transmission to the brain so the sound can be discerned. The ear can receive and separate the equivalent of notes from a piano with over 20,000 keys, as well as buffer any loud sounds. At the same time, the inner ear helps our sense of balance through the semicircular canals, equilibrates with atmospheric pressure through the eustachian tube that connects to the back of the throat, and communicates in thousands of ways with the brain. That only begins the story of the complexity of hearing. Every minute step of formation must be explained mechanistically if evolution is to be believed. The olfactory system. The human nose can detect methylmercaptan in rancid meat at a level of 1/400 billionth of a gram. It can also differentiate 4,000 other scents. This is made possible by about 150 million sensory cilia in the nose. They translate an odor into a specific neural transmission to the brain. If that's not special enough, consider the smelling skills of our biological neighbors. The trace of sweat that seeps through the shoes to the ground, and a few cells that drop off our skin to the ground as we move about through the day, is 1,000,000 times more powerful than a bloodhound needs to track you down. An amorous silkworm moth can follow 1/10,000th of a milligram of a female sexual attractant from 7 miles away. The central nervous system. For the brain to function, the billions of neurons and trillions of interconnecting links transmitting signals through well over 60,000 miles of tendrils have to be wired correctly, but yet permit hooking and rehooking of connections. It really makes no evolutionary sense that we presently have far more brain than we use, and that it has the capacity for artistic, musical, and mathematical genius that has no relationship to survival whatsoever. We could go on and on with this, but this brief review of complexity within the human body could go on through every single organ, tissue, and cell. A nose, section of skin, a splice of the heart, liver, tooth, epiglottis, or a knuckle in your hand present countless conundrums, not solved by words like mutations and selection.
Thank you for listening.
Keep in mind that solving the big questions requires foundations upon which truthful answers can be built. So please work through the series sequentially. This information has taken decades of research, thought, and writing. Aside from the peace of mind the solutions have brought me, the only reward I seek is hearing that it's helped you. Feel free to contact me with any comments or questions at asifThinkingMatters.com.